If there are 5 companies that are going to give you huge revenue, you will pay special attention and focus to win those.
What exactly is ABM? It's a strategy, it's a tactic, or it's more of a culture?
I will definitely not define it as tactic. It is a model of going to market, a combination of culture and strategy. Buying a couple of ABM techs and then testing it after a couple of months, not seeing much traction, and then going to your leadership and saying, hey, ABM doesn't work for us. ABM is not going to work by itself. You have to make it happen.
Is it ABM or ABX? What's your take on it?
What matters is that at the end of the day, the most important thing is for you and your team to make sure that you are going after the most important accounts that matter.
Somewhere between Miami, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda sits a mysterious stretch of the Atlantic Ocean known for disappearances. The Bermuda Triangle. It's a place where ships and aircraft somehow got lost, unable to pass through and reach their intended destination. Whether due to severe storm or human error, Flight 19 met its fate there, so did the USS Cyclops. And without the right strategy, it's also where your ABM communications could wind up. Lost in the abyss, never to reach your highest value targets, despite your best intention. If you're having trouble separating fact from fiction, fear no more. The truth about effective ABM is out there, and we're going to uncover it. Welcome to the HEX-Files Energy Marketing Podcast with me, your host, Arnaud Dasprez. If you want to believe, you've come to the right place. Today, on the HEX-Files, we'll be diving into account-based marketing, or ABM. ABM has been around for decades in some way, shape, or form, but as marketing continues to become hyper-personalized, ABM is entering its golden era of effectiveness, especially for energy brands. There's no one better to investigate ABM than Prajwal Gatwala, founder, CEO of Business Brainz. Praj is an expert at helping marketing and sales team gain the insights they need to pursue and win large enterprise accounts. He's the king of intel, and he leverages this specialized experience when spearheading effective ABM campaigns across the B2B landscape. His team does all the research and inside stuff that the sales team always wish they had done after they lose the deal to a competition. Welcome to the HEX-Files, Praj. Let's uncover the truth. Good morning, everyone. Today we're talking about the famous acronym ABM, and for that, the best place to visit is Nepal, where the views are phenomenal, people are nice, and I'm here with Praj. So Praj, how is it going in Kathmandu today?
Oh, it's going good. Spring has sprung, if I may say. Days are getting warmer. Now we're just back to, one layer. Probably the ice will start melting from the mountaintops. And we're still continuing to work with a lot of B2B sales and marketing folks around the world.
Well, that's good. So today we're talking about ABM. So let's start by defining ABM for our listener. What exactly is ABM, and why is it's a way of doing things and not a tech stack?
I think ABM's just pretty high terminology in the last 5-7 years, if I may say. But ABM has always been a way of doing things. For example, if they're among so many companies that any sales and marketing team is going to go after, if there are 5 that are going to give you huge revenue, it's obvious that you will pay special attention and focus to win those 5, won't you? Obviously. So now, once you give many technologies and tools of personalization and tracking and so on and so forth from a technology standpoint, and gives you the ability to really be account-based, right? And then also, once we see the role of Chief Growth Officer or Chief Revenue Officer, who are trying to make sure that the revenue team or marketing and sales teams come together and they are going to be measured by a common metric or so on and so forth, then you are going to try to sell being very, very account focused or account based, and that is what account based marketing is, right? Technology is going to enable you in that process, but it is a way of doing things.
So by the way of doing things, do you think it's a strategy, it's a tactic, or it's more of a culture?
I will definitely not define it as tactic, right? It is definitely a way of doing, or it would be more of a model of going to market when it comes to going after those accounts that matter. And should you and you would like to win, that's going to have the most significant revenue or significant impact on the numbers now or at some time in future. So it's definitely a combination of culture and strategy. It's more strategic, I would say, than just a tactic.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about what does a successful ABM campaign look like? What are the key elements you would see of an ABM campaign?
Everyone has their own flavor of doing ABM, right? But if we are going to talk about key elements, the major element that I would say that's going to be is to be account based, or at least you need to know that we are going to shift away from a spray and pray model and wait for the phone to ring, or we are going to do all these content and we will wait for someone to click or download a white paper and everything, and that way we will assume they are interested and then we'll start going after them. So from that, I think shifting an entire culture, shifting an entire focus, and deciding that, okay, for the next foreseeable 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, or so on and so forth, marketing, sales, and leadership coming together and agreeing to the fact that, okay, we are going to focus on these number of accounts and for these reasons, and they have a clear business case for that. And in order to achieve that, we are going to follow this particular way. So the elements automatically, one, it's going to be that the senior level team has to be committed to making it happen, because ABM will show results if you want to make it happen, right? But if you're just testing, oh, let's try and test ABM for a couple of weeks, well, that's the shortcut to ABM disaster. So one, at the top level, they need to agree and they need to have that commitment or conviction rather to take that approach. One. Two, your marketing team, in most of the companies that have been doing marketing the traditional way, right? Marketing will go ahead and raise a lot of awareness and take things to a certain extent, and they will have their own criteria, which we used to call NQLs, and then they would have passed it on to the sales, and the sales guys would pick it up from there and try to do their magic, and so on and so forth. Until and unless sales and marketing try to talk to each other, figure out a common language to speak with each other and common way to measure, which is going to be in the end the revenue that they drive or how close to that they've gotten. That I would say is going to be the major elements. And of course, cultural shift is going to be kind of the underlying gravity to make that happen.
So you said one very important thing here. You said you need leadership to drive the results. So you see a lot of your clients that the decision to go ABM is something that is driven by the leadership and not by sales and or marketing.
Well, because it is not a tactic, right? Or it is not something that a small team can test it as a side project. It requires commitment, both financial and, kind of commitment at a lot of different levels at an organization, right? I don't think it is going to be something that you can start as a side project or a bunch of guys trying to test it as a project and then take it and see whether or not it has been successful or not, right? And because it shifts the entire way you go about trying to land or onboard your dream accounts rather, or those large accounts, right? It will have to happen, that shift will have to happen from the very top.
I get it. And you mentioned metrics, and the big metric is definitely revenue, but are there any other metrics that need to be considered as part of figuring out the progress of some such campaign?
Well, definitely yes, but that's one of the reasons why why adopting account-based marketing as a model, one, is not going to be so easy. And two, it requires collaboration at a lot of levels, and it's not so easy to measure, right? The reason being, there are a lot of small steps that you will have to take, even running a traditional marketing, right? That will pave the path for the big deal, right? Now, how do you measure your progress making those smaller steps, right? It could be like I have had many of our customers who adopt account-based marketing as a model, who define the level of relationship with key stakeholders and other decision influencers on a scale of 10. And they measure that month over month, right? They measure how many frequent engagements are happening with their content, how many times, what sort of relationship have they established with those multitude of people at their target accounts, because most of the companies that are engaged in ABM are in long, complex sales cycle, right? So are they going to be among the first few to be invited to discuss or share knowledge about something by your target account once they seek some guidance? That's going to be termed as, do they seek your guidance or do they see you as an expertise in that space, right? Your overall relationship with decision makers and influencers is going to be another, right? Your team members' understanding of the target account, of the CEO's priorities, of their challenges, of their opportunities, and how well are they articulating into all the communications. So all these things will be the broader area. And again, I haven't said which technology you're using, right? Because technology usually is going to be means to an end, which is going to be to reach your customer or to reach the account who you want them to be your customer, right? So these would be the metric, but the reason why it doesn't succeed is then the onus lies on the people who are going to implement it to create their own version of the metric that they are going to use from among these aspects, and then figure out this is how we're going to measure.
So it's really a mix of when we get involved as ourselves in ABM for our clients, there's definitely a very strong handshake and relationship between our activities and sales.
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
and when it comes down to metrics, you mentioned it, the activity and how people relate to the content, and it's really blending with some of the business development activity, because at the end, I mean, we are helping with business development, or we actually sometimes feel like we're doing business development. How would you define now the difference between standard business development for someone specifically targeting an account and ABM, or is it kind of now blended?
Wow, that's an interesting question. So in a very typical business development scenario, let's say, right, you would go ahead and you will probably create a ton of content with some limited knowledge about the industry, right? Let's say you want to target the financial services industry, and then you create a couple case studies or white papers, how you already have helped companies in that industry, and then so on and so forth, and you'll share it across multiple channels, or probably you'll promote it across multiple channels, and then assume that things that in your experience have happened in the industry are going to influence other players, and based upon that, which is very, very logical, right? And they would come to you and they would want to talk to you because you've published those stories. Yeah. When you're taking a very typical account-based approach, right, what happens is, of course, you will have to understand about the industry. Of course, you have to understand about those personas in that industry that are going to be critical to influencing from your end. Of course, you have to understand about a lot of other people. But in addition to that, you will have to be account-based, meaning that one particular account that you're going to go after, right? You will want to understand what are the CEO's top 5 priorities for the next 1 to 2 to 3 years, right? Well, that means how are they going to measure their success? Now then the job is yours to show them that, hey, our solution can help you reach from point A to point B, and that's how we are going to help you win, right? And that will have to have its own variations when you're going after bank A to bank B to bank C, because 3 different banks in the same industry, but the CEOs are going to define their own success in a very different way, right? So that would be a very typical a fundamental difference between how you would go about in terms of the going business development route or taking a very account specific. And that's going to change if you're going to sell into the energy sector, if you're going to sell into the manufacturing sector, because all CEOs are going to be measured. Their report cards are going to be different, right? Even if you're in the same industry.
Yeah, we've seen that, and we have a specific example where a large provider of data solutions that were not specialized in the energy space came to us, and they basically said, well, we've been at it for a while. We cannot really sell. We cannot penetrate the energy industry and at large. But it came back to the point that there was absolutely zero value proposition developed for them. So that's kind of what we were working with them on, and developed more of a very energy-centric value proposition. And that was a pretty big success in terms of generating some type of awareness. But when we actually started working on specific type of accounts, that we developed some interest, and trying to push them to really go account-based, or looking at operator A, B, C, D, and the difference. That's where there is always a pushback that we need to really have an offer that can work for both, and we can actually implement, because they feel like it's additional work, and sometimes they're not ready to go that extra step, even if they call it account-based, because they have a target of 10, 15 accounts. They don't truly, I mean, to my field, do it the way they should. And I guess it comes to my questions, what type of missteps you think people trying to do ABM fall into that drive failure? Kind of what are the most common pitfalls you see in those ABM campaigns?
The most common pitfalls, I would say, is I think the biggest one is going to be that, which is the easiest one, right? Is going to be just buying a couple of ABM techs and then testing it, and after a couple of months, not seeing much traction, and then going to your leadership and saying, hey, ABM doesn't work for us. It might work for them, but it doesn't work for us, right? ABM is not going to work by itself. You have to make it happen. That's going to be one, because right now with a lot of technology, is probably you can first go ahead and figure out the industries and sectors and whatnot, and then see a bunch of companies that are showing some sort of intent. So now you have a tool that gives you 100, 200 accounts every week that are showing some intent. If a couple of people from your company are researching about a particular area, let's say e-bikes, doesn't mean Hexa Group is going to change its fleets and everyone in their team are going to replace their cars and bikes and whatnot with electric bikes, right? But because the company's domain, it is going to show intent, right? So there has to be some level of understanding around that. So, and then you slap another layer of technology to monitor and target those companies which are showing intent. And then you do that cycle for good enough time, and then you classify them by industry, right? And you don't really put in the effort to understand further nuances about the industries or the sub-industries or the sub-sectors in those industries, and by geography, by persona types, and so on and so forth. So you really don't slice and dice and put that human element of understanding into that context, and then just automate a lot of things, slap a lot of technologies, and then the results are not going to be much in your favor, right? So that's one of the ways that I have that's one pitfall I would say I've seen a lot of people falling through. Another is going to be probably calling we're doing account based, but just basically just named targeted marketing, right? But not really being account based, meaning focusing on particular accounts, at least trying to understand each account at an account level and understanding their priorities or challenges, clubbing similar ones. Like for one of our customers, their solution is going to be very relevant to those companies that have been engaged in any sort of merger and acquisition in the last 6 to 12 months, right? So they gave us a list of accounts, and they've given us, hey, these are the 3 most important triggers, regardless of industry, regardless of geography. If they have done, or these business events inside of the company have happened in the last 6 to 12 months, those are the relevant triggers for us to approach them, right? And they marry that with the top 3 priorities of the CEO, right? And then it could be a group of 5 to 7 companies from across different industries, but they have done some sort of merger and acquisition, or more than 2 or 3 in the last 6 to 12 months. And then these are, at least one of these 2 are among the priorities of the CEOs, then they would go after them in a very personalized manner, right? So as the name itself suggests, slapping technology doesn't necessarily ensure you're account based, but making sure that you understand at some level the accounts, and then you are going to be account based in terms of your approach. It could be awareness, it could be further building relationship, it could be trying to close towards a sale. Yeah, that would be the common pitfalls, I'd say.
So there's a lot of research involved in really being successful in such campaign, and you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of that work. The question that came to us a lot of time is when you're being engaged by a customer to do some research to really find the right information in order to be successful. Do the
Right.
client come usually with a list of accounts, and you do the extra research, and you really give them very, very specific information that they can take on and run with? Or do you also do the other way around, where you know the company's key objectives, and based on those objectives and all the data and the technology that you use, you can figure out which are the top 3 accounts that your client should go after? How of the 2 do you do most, and do you actually approach this both ways?
Wow. Yeah, we do. We do more than those both ways, to be honest, because We deliver very bespoke solutions based upon the need, and we don't have a generic solution, thankfully, because we're not a SaaS company, we are a services company, right? So there have been times when our clients have come up with a list of like 200, 250, 300, and then we've spent very short research hours, but we've worked with them and figured out, okay, 2, 3 questions that if there is an answer to yes, yes, no, yes, whatever, and we will fill a spreadsheet with those 3 answers, and then we'll send it back to them. We will work with them to funnel the list and make it shorter and shorter, right? So that's one approach that we've taken. Another is when they have a list of, let's say, 15 to 20 companies that they think make a logical list for that client, right? And across 5 industries, right? But then you cannot really run a campaign very individualized and personalized across 75 to 100 unless you're a very, very large company with enough resources. If you have, you can, right? I've supported those too. But then in that case, what they would give us is, hey, we want to, these are the criterias, and of course, we will work with them to figure out those criterias. And then based upon that, we would go ahead, do that research and come up with, hey, in our, from our research, we applied your criteria, which you have said, which qualifies your target prospects, right? And based upon that, these are the companies, this is how they would rank, and we would work with them to identify the top 5 in each industry. And across 4 industries, once we've identified the top 20, then we would work with them to do a deep dive research and then take it from there. So we've done those. And a lot of times, there are clients that we've been working with for years, and we are their inside partner. We know we will have a total of 75 companies that we will do a deep dive research for that client for year 2025, and beginning of 26, they would say, hey, this year we're going to have 60 or 80 or 100 or whatever, and then that's how we would support them. So we've done both ways.
And does that research drive some of the action that you're asking the marketing department to take in terms of we're lacking some specific content, or we're lacking some element of our product that would actually drive a stronger interest to that specific account?
So they would really vary, right? So at what stage the accounts are, or how are they adopting? So a lot of times, if it's one-to-one, if it is very, very strategic accounts, then by and large, they would have had a fair idea about what's happening in the industry, right? And they want to understand the accounts at a detailed level. They want to understand the CIO at a more granular level, if it is a technology company, or if things have moved further, they also want to understand the CFO, who it is, what kind of person is he. Sometimes they might want to understand the procurement process and so on and so forth, right? In a lot of cases, there might be a scenario where they have 20 accounts and they want to zero in on that, but they want to be pretty sure. So they will come to us and say, hey, these are the 3 industries. Can you help us understand these industries, but from this lens, which is their solution? And then give us any case studies that have been in the industry. And we also want to understand the CFO, CIO, or CTO, or head of production, or the roles. And based upon that, they will create certain content that's personalized to a larger extent, right? And then once they can target, or they can test that with the customers that they want to go after, and they need to understand each customer at a granular level, then they ask us to do deeper and deeper and deeper research. But mostly all the customers that we work with, they already are oriented to do more research, understand at a deeper level, and that's when they would want to work with us. So my responses could be biased also.
I understand, yeah. And on this topic, you mentioned personalization, and we're talking about what do you see as far as big trends today in terms of ABM, and there's I'm sure the element of AI that is coming into conversation. Can you tell me a little bit about the key trends you see, and does AI for you move the needle one way or another?
Well, I think AI definitely makes everyone efficient for sure, and so does uh, it does make us efficient also, right? As far as ABM and AI is concerned, right? I think AI is definitely going to enable personalization or customization at scale than it has been accessible to a lot of marketers and salespeople. So it's going to be very, very interesting how B2B sales and marketing people or professionals adopt AI and move with that in the next 6 to 18 months, right? With that said, I think, of course, AI is going to have its own challenges in terms of a human who knows how to leverage AI in the right direction can get a lot more done with AI than someone without. That means the human in charge and how much of investment he or she is going to make in that direction is going to make a huge difference, right? Uh, and while AI is evolving at a very, very rapid stage, right, for the kind of work that we are doing, AI is still not has still not reached the stage where we can completely rely on AI without a layer of verification or putting the human brain, marrying that output with the context that we want AI to populate the result, right? So, but with that said, I think certain research that would have taken X number of hours, it definitely has reduced a couple hours or more for us from a research standpoint. But because we do the bespoke thing, we try to contextualize. If I'm helping your company go after a couple of energy giants in the world, then we would look at that context and then try to give you the insight that matters. I think AI is yet to reach that space. Yeah. So AI is definitely going to give access of personalization, customization to so many. That means you need to now step up and become all the more better than that. Because everyone's going to write an email to you saying, hey, Arnaud, this is how you apply skills from tennis into B2B marketing, right? But that doesn't mean you're going to, not now, you'll be bombarded with 10 emails with reference of tennis and you, right? So then how does someone really take it from there to really personalize it and try to marry some sort of a context around the business case in tennis is going to win and grab your attention.
Yeah, I think the email personalization is considered by some people that are getting excited about it, like, oh, it is personalized, so it's really targeted to the account. Thus, it's account-based marketing, and that's a big no.
Yeah.
On the email topic, I'm receiving from kind of these cold emails, most of them today in French, and it's been the last 3 months. For some reason, AI must have found out that my background was French, so now I'm getting all these AI generated email in French. So I know now it's very easy for me because I don't even have to read anything. I know I can trash them. But I think that's kind of a.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned this because 2 days ago, this week, I got an email from some clearly a Western name, and he was trying to sell me something, and he was saying, "Hey, if this doesn't work, your dinner at one restaurant, which is a local restaurant over here, is on me," right? So obviously someone is bound to think, oh, how does he know the name of this restaurant? But then all that person did was put my certain details, at least the link to my LinkedIn handle on their tool, figured out which city I am, and pulled among the top 7, 8, 10, 20 restaurants and just slapped it into that email and sent it. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to buy from them, right? But that email clearly had no other evidence of that person knowing what I do, for sure.
No, and on the other token, another client that truly is completely focused on account-based marketing.
Mhm.
They found out what type of cake, and that's a company they're targeting, and they are in Louisiana. And they know what type of cake this particular office share, and they go and hand deliver king's cake on Mardi Gras Day to that office to have a conversation. I mean, that those are kind of the two set of the coin. Another thing I'm ready to discuss. We discuss ABM, but is it really ABM, or some people call it ABX? About experience. What's your take on it, and who is involved? I mean, we mentioned leadership, we mentioned marketing, we mentioned sales. Are we talking also about customer support and other elements, other aspects of the company that should get involved?
You need to go from point A to point B. You can drive yourself. You can have a chauffeur drive you to that place. And you can call for an Uber, you can call for a taxi, and so on and so forth, right? So,
You can
and
walk.
one Uber, yeah, you can walk or cycle, or in a couple years, probably there can be a drone that comes, picks you up, and flies you there, hopefully, right? So the thing is, it all depends upon how you define what that means, or what your account-based, what being account-based means for you, for your company internally, for your team, and how you define, how you measure, and so on and so forth, right? But to the other company that you're reaching out to, which is your account, right? Again, instead of making it like a marketing that you're trying to go, a marketing tool for you that you're trying to go after for them, if you can make it an experience for them, right? That's how companies or people would define it. But then, of course, if you are going to commit to a way or a style of winning your most important top 20, 30, 40 accounts, right? Uh, I don't think the terminology ABM or ABX or there's so many other flavors that have come, right? What I would say what matters is that not how you define it, right? Not whether you choose to go take an Uber or a taxi or drive yourself. At the end of the day, the most important thing is going to be to reach from point A to point B, which means for you and your team, for your organization, for your leadership team, to make sure that you are going after the most important accounts that matter. You have your own internal mechanism to figure out conclusively that internally, okay, these are the 20 accounts that matter to us, and hence we should put a lot of energy into winning these accounts. Then creating a sort of account-based plan into each. How are we going to go about winning each of these accounts, from account number 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 20, if it is 20, and then figuring out a broader way to kind of a feedback mechanism in terms of how do we measure, are we going right, are we going wrong, how can we, what smaller steps can we take to be better aligned towards that direction, which is again winning those accounts. I think that's going to be the most important thing. Then just naming, hey, we're doing ABM, we're doing ABX, we're doing ABC or whatever. That would be my take on that.
I, I get it, and I guess when you really account based, I mean, keeping your company, keeping your account happy, growing those accounts that you've spent so much energy actually to acquire. That's where, I mean, the whole corporate machine needs to be focused on how to serve this specific organization the same way you did some very custom, and you mentioned bespoke kind of work to gain that account. In the same way, when you actually servicing that account, you need to have the same approach. I mean, I think that's where you're looking at account-based culture. I mean, that's the way I would interpret it. Do you think it's the right way to look at it from a business standpoint?
Yeah, of course. I think, you've heard of the Pareto principle, right? At the end of the day, 80% of your revenue is going to be driven by 20% of your customers, right? Now, if that is the case, right, or it doesn't necessarily have to be 80-20, or then it might be 70-30, or it might be 60-40 and whatnot, right? Of course, it makes logical sense to go after those companies, if it is net new, that can give you the highest revenue or revenue potential, right? Of course, it makes sense to be going after those companies that are already your customer. You're already selling a small solution, or you're already selling into a small part of the company to try to grow with it. Because you're already a vendor, you already have a point of contact, you have already solved a particular business, you've already solved a particular problem to a small part of the business, and you can show them that, oh, we can solve the same problem for a bigger part of the same business, right? So it makes absolute sense. Like there was this drone mapping company out of Australia that we were working with, and the challenge for them, because they were a license, their revenue depended upon per user, and there was a licensing model, right? There was a lot of restructuring going into their target account, but they were already a user, a customer. The last thing that they wanted to do was to have a lesser number of users, because that would have significantly reduced their revenue, right? But now their entire line of business got merged into another, their entire segments changed and everything. We worked on a list of more than 500 people to map out which line of business are they now working, which division, and so on and so forth. Right? Based upon that, they launched a marketing campaign at multiple layers. Like at one layer, they launched a campaign purely for awareness. Another layer, probably those were already users. And based upon how we had classified, they ran their marketing campaigns into each layer. And they were able to maintain the number of licenses, but if not increase it, right? But when your existing customer is undergoing an entire restructuring, a company's ability to maintain their revenue from a per user license, it was a good win for them. And we did that across more than 500 people that they had sent us to. So they were already a customer. They did try to understand at a user level. They understood the priorities and challenges of that company. They were able to communicate that, and then drive their revenue and maintain their revenue, which was a big chunk of revenue for them.
No, and I think it's extremely important to make sure that your existing customers, you have to actively market to them, and you need to keep them, you need to grow them, and you need to evolve with them, because a lot of time that's where a lot of companies fail. I mean, they don't keep abreast of what's happening in the organization, and eventually they go away, and you say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. And I'm sure you see that, I mean, as a kind of a use case in some of your clients.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's super important. In fact, many of the briefs that we get from our clients, right, it clearly outlines, hey, they're an existing customer. We're selling into a small division, or we're selling into the North American business. Now we want to start working with their European side of things. So can you help us understand the European leadership, European business priorities, challenges, and so on and so forth? What are they doing in Europe? And just, we want to know everything about this company, everything Europe, right? A lot of times it's the other way around, and they are their existing customers. They're already making revenue, but they want to make sure that they maintain and they expand.
So in the energy industry, in-house marketing teams are often very small in whole, all things considered. And what are some tips you could provide for small team who want to achieve big results with ABM?
Wow, that's interesting. If there's a small, and usually in energy, it's very much understandable they would have a small team. And we have worked with a few in the energy space that have a smaller team. In that case, we've worked with the agency that supports that team, right? I would say identify the right agency or identify the right team to work with, right? Who already have the expertise and experience that can complement the experience and expertise that your existing team has. That would be one, right? Two, when you're working with another team, right, an agency for that matter, I think it becomes super important to be on the same page in terms of understanding the target industry, in terms of understanding the competition, how are the competition going to market, and how do you build your narrative, steer clear from how your competition is positioning themselves and go after. It becomes important for the energy company and the agency to be on the same page in terms of understanding or first concluding on the personas that they want to go after, and then understanding the persona at a deeper level for each industry, right? And then once that has happened, if you are taking an account-based route, then depending upon which flavor of account-based marketing that you decide to go after, make sure that you have a fair amount of understanding of each account that you want to go after, right? And then the decision makers at each account, and then try to work with the team and figure out, and then again, even in this case, how is the energy company going to define success? That has to be aligned between the agency and that. For example, we were working with a company that's trying to use ammonia as a fuel as opposed to the fossil fuels, right? So we've been working with them for a while now. Initially, once we started, we help them understand the multiple industries first to go after again, and then we based upon that, we also went ahead and figured out, hey, these are the 2-3 personas that are going to be pretty crucial when you're trying to do this, right? And then we went ahead and tried to help them understand, you know let's say for marine industry, for example, right? So first we helped them understand marine industry at a more deeper level than they already knew. And then it was at the second stage, we helped them understand who are the personas that are going to be the most important when it comes to making these decisions. So it could have been the ESG leader, it could have been the chief engineer, it could have been the CFO at some point in time. So we help them understand at each industry that they want to go after these personas, right? And then the agency team and the company sales and marketing team now we're aligned. Okay, now we know the industry. Now we understand the personas in each industry. Now let's go after these industries and these accounts. We worked with them to validate their assumptions, and one or two were just assumptions, not facts. Others were facts, and then we proceeded with an account level approach.
Yeah, so really finding the right partner, measuring, having some strong, some good KPIs to measure success, and definitely understand your offering, and to really not going too many direction. That's definitely key. And thank you, Praj. I think we've covered a lot on the ABM front, and the topic really was escaping the Bermuda Triangle, and I think we've helped our audience navigate a little bit the ABM landscape. Now it's your time to tell us in short, what you are, where we can find a little bit more information about you, and for our listener to kind of reach out if they're having interest.
Oh, okay, sure. First of all, thank you so much, Arnaud, for having me on your show. I hope I was able to share something valuable to your audience, right? My name is Praj. I run a research and insight and data company called Business Brainz. Any company that is selling into that is engaged in long, complex sales cycle and targeting large accounts, where it makes sense to invest into understanding the industry, understanding personas, understanding target accounts, and whatnot. We work with the sales and marketing team and we deliver that in a very, very bespoke way. Best place to find me will be on LinkedIn. My name is Praj. My full name is Prajwal Gadtaula. I work from a tiny country called Nepal, and that's how I add value to a lot of B2B marketing professionals around the globe.
Well, thank you very much, Praj.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the HEX-File, the podcast that investigates the biggest curiosities in energy marketing so that you can separate fact from fiction. Curious how your brand ranks across 6 areas of energy marketing performance? Take a free assessment at hexagroup.com/podcast. And until next time, fear no more. The truth is out there.